Nayeli was known across the wide-open lands as a woman with a calm heart and strong spirit. From the time she was young, she loved to follow the trails of the deer and listen to the wind move through the tall grass. While other girls of her age learned cooking and weaving, Nayeli preferred riding her horse across the open fields. Her people often smiled at her unusual path, and as she grew older, even the elders admitted she had a gift. She noticed small signs in nature that others missed. She could tell which way a rabbit had gone only by looking at a faint mark in the sand. She could understand the seasons by the color of the leaves. She could hear an approaching storm long before the clouds appeared. These talents made her important among her people, and they trusted her during long journeys or during hunts when they needed careful eyes. Nayeli's tribe did not give titles easily. Yet slowly, they began to call her a warrior woman, not because she fought, but because she carried the same courage and discipline expected from the strongest members of the tribe. She respected her people, helped the elders, and lived with a sense of honor. She woke before sunrise, checked the horses, and guided the younger ones who admired her confidence. Many believed she would one day become a leader, even though she never sought such praise. She only wished to serve her people and keep them safe. One autumn morning, the tribe prepared for a long hunt. The air was cool and fresh, filled with the gentle smell of pine. Soft, golden light covered the hills, and the earth felt peaceful. Nayeli saddled her trusted horse, a calm brown mare named Whisper. She had raised Whisper from a foal, and the two shared a bond that needed no words. When Nayeli touched the mare's neck, Whisper seemed to understand every signal. The group rode out together, following a narrow path along rocky hills. The land was beautiful that morning. Smooth stones shone in the sunlight, and small birds flew overhead. Nayeli rode slightly ahead, guiding the group toward a route she knew well. She had traveled this path many times before and trusted it completely. Nothing about the day suggested danger. Everything felt ordinary, quiet, and balanced. As they moved along the ridge, the sound of hooves echoed softly. Nayeli breathed deeply, enjoying the peace of the open land. Whisper stepped carefully, just as she always did. But beneath the surface of the hill, winter's earlier rain had loosened the ground. The rocks were not as steady as they appeared. Nayeli could not see this from where she rode. No one could. Whisper took a step forward, and a small rock shifted, rolling gently down the side. Nayeli felt the movement but kept calm, guiding the horse slowly. Yet the ground under the mare's next step moved again, this time more than before. A cluster of loose stones slid downward, carrying part of the narrow path with them. Whisper reacted instinctively, lifting her front legs slightly. Nayeli leaned forward to steady her, but the ground continued to change beneath them. The mare slipped, not because she was careless, but because the earth itself gave way under her hooves. The movement was slow but unexpected. Nayeli tried to shift her weight and guide Whisper back toward stable ground. For a brief moment she managed to keep balance, but the sliding stones kept pulling downward. Whisper lost her footing completely, and the two were carried down the gentle slope. There was no sharp fall, only a long, rough slide over the loose earth. Nayeli held onto Whisper tightly as the mare tried to stop herself. The slope was not steep, but it was covered in gravel and shifting rock, making it impossible to control the descent. Nayeli felt the world tilting around her as they slid down several yards before coming to a stop near the base of the hill, where the ground finally leveled out. The moment everything stopped, Whisper stood up with a soft, shaken breath. The mare seemed mostly unhurt, but Nayeli knew something was wrong with herself. She tried to move but felt a strong, unfamiliar pain. It wasn't sharp. It was more like a deep pressure that spread through her body, leaving her unable to stand. She lay still, breathing slowly, while Whisper stayed close, nudging her gently with her nose. The hunting party reached her within minutes, their faces filled with worry. They carefully lifted her onto a blanket and brought her back to the main camp. Everyone gathered around, offering comfort and quiet words. The tribe's healer examined her and tried everything they knew, using herbs, warm water, and gentle pressure. Nayeli did not cry out once, but the healer's expression showed concern. Her legs were badly injured, more than anyone expected from such a short fall. Over the next days, her tribe continued caring for her. Women brought her fresh water and soft food. Children sat near her to keep her company. Young men visited her tent, telling stories to lift her spirit. Whisper stayed near her whenever possible, calm and protective. Nayeli appreciated every kind act. Even though the pain did not go away, she tried to remain hopeful, but she knew she might not be able to walk for a long time. Time passed slowly. The swelling in her legs did not reduce as they hoped. The healer stayed with her every day. But after many attempts, he realized her injuries were more serious than they had first believed. Her legs were not healing. They remained weak, and she could not stand even with support. Nayeli tried to hide her worry, but inside she wondered what this meant for her future in the tribe. Her people cared deeply for her, yet they also lived a life that required constant movement. They traveled through changing seasons, crossed long distances, and often needed to pack up their entire camp within a single day. Every person played a role, and resources were always limited. As days passed, some members began to whisper among themselves, not out of cruelty, but out of fear for the tribe's survival. They wondered how they could continue caring for Nayeli when she needed constant help and no longer had the strength to travel far. Nayeli saw the change around her. Even though no one said anything to her directly, people still visited. But their visits grew shorter. The camp grew quieter. The healer sat beside her and offered gentle comfort. But she could see the sadness in his eyes. He wished he could do more but had reached the limit of his knowledge. Nayeli lay awake at night, listening to the soft sounds of the camp. She remembered the days she rode confidently across the open land, chasing sunlight with Whisper. She remembered the laughter of the children she guided, the trust of the elders who believed in her. She wondered how everything had changed so quickly, yet she did not feel anger. She believed every person did their best in difficult times. One morning, she noticed the camp preparing for travel. People rolled up blankets, packed baskets, and gathered the horses. Whisper was already saddled. A quiet heaviness filled the air. The elders approached her, their faces full of regret. They explained softly that the tribe needed to move quickly to avoid trouble from rival groups. They could not carry someone who could not ride or walk. They promised to leave her with food, water, and shelter, hoping she would find another group of travelers who could help her in ways they could not. Nayeli listened without interruption. She felt the weight of their words, but she did not blame them. She understood their fear and the pressure they faced. When the tribe left, she lay quietly under the small shelter they built for her, watching them disappear across the open land. Whisper looked back at her several times, as if confused, before being guided forward. Nayeli remained alone as the wind moved gently around her and the sky stretched endlessly above. In her heart, she held on to one truth. Her spirit was still strong, even if her body was not. She did not know what the next days would bring, but she refused to let despair shape her story. Nayeli woke the morning after her tribe left to a quiet that felt heavier than the night before. The world around her was still, almost too still, as if even the breeze did not want to disturb her. She lay beneath the small shelter made of branches and cloth that her people had left behind for her. It offered shade, but not much comfort. Still, she was grateful for it. She was grateful for anything that reminded her she had once been surrounded by those she cared for. The sun rose slowly, warming the ground. Nayeli listened to the gentle sounds of the desert morning, the chirping of small birds, the distant rustle of dry grass, and the soft whisper of wind passing between stones. Those sounds usually made her feel calm, but now they only reminded her of how alone she was. She looked at the supplies her tribe had left: a few baskets of dried food, 2 water skins, some blankets, and a wooden stick she could use to pull things toward her. She carefully organized them so she could reach everything without needing to move too far. At first, she believed she could manage. She had always valued her strength, and she still believed she could survive with patience and courage. But as the hours passed, she realized how difficult even simple tasks had become. Pulling herself to the water skins took much of her energy. Moving from shade to sunlight required careful effort. Her body still hurt from the accident, and her legs remained completely still, reminding her of everything she had lost. But she refused to let fear take control. She kept her mind steady and reminded herself that she had survived unexpected challenges before. This was simply another test of her spirit. She spent the first day adjusting to her new reality, learning how to move using her arms and shifting her weight without causing too much pain. She drank only small sips of water to make it last. She ate lightly. She rested when she needed to. She watched the sky, hoping to see a traveling group or a distant horse, but the land remained empty. When night came, the temperature dropped sharply. The air felt cold against her skin, but she wrapped herself in blankets and tried to sleep. The stars above looked bright and endless. She found comfort in them, knowing her ancestors had looked at the same sky for generations. She whispered a quiet prayer for strength, and it helped her calm her thoughts. Days passed slowly, each one blending into the next. Nayeli developed a routine. She woke when the sun rose, adjusted her shelter if the wind pushed it out of place, and checked her supplies. She learned how to pull herself closer to the small puddle of water that formed near a cluster of rocks during the cool nights. She drank from it carefully, always aware that she needed to stretch every resource as long as possible. Her biggest challenge was the silence. She had always lived with the sound of voices around her families, talking, children laughing, horses moving, the soft crackle of fires. Without those sounds, the world felt too large and too empty. She tried to keep her thoughts active by remembering good moments from her life. The time she guided a lost child back to camp. The evening she raced Whisper across a field filled with golden light. The nights when she sat with the elders and listened to old stories. These memories brought her comfort but also made her heart ache. Still, she did not allow herself to fall into sadness for long. Each time her thoughts grew heavy, she reminded herself that she was alive, and that alone was enough reason to keep trying. One afternoon, she noticed the sky turning darker in the distance. A wind began to pick up, pushing the sand in small waves across the ground. She knew a desert storm was approaching. Even a small storm could be unpleasant, but a large one could bring strong winds and cold nights. She checked her shelter, tightening the cloth and pressing the edges down with stones. She made sure her food and water were covered. She braced herself as the wind grew stronger. When the storm arrived, it was loud and forceful. Sand blew against her shelter, making it shake. The wind howled for hours, and Nayeli held her blankets tightly around her. She closed her eyes and waited for the storm to pass. It reminded her that nature was powerful, but also that she had faced storms before: rainstorms, snowstorms, and emotional storms. This one, too, would end. When the sky finally calmed, she opened her eyes and let out a slow breath. Her shelter had held. She felt grateful again. Even in her difficult situation, she spent the evening cleaning the sand from her supplies and rearranging everything. She continued to survive through patience and determination. As more days passed, her water began to run low. This worried her more than anything else. Food, she could stretch for a long time. But water was different. She watched the sky every morning, hoping for rain, but the clouds stayed far away. Her body grew weaker, and pulling herself to the small puddle near the rocks took even more effort. She realized she needed to find a better water source soon. One morning, after a long night with little sleep, she heard a faint sound in the distance. At first, she was not sure if it was real. It was soft, almost like fabric moving or footsteps far away. She lifted her head and listened carefully. Holding her breath, the sound came again, a slow, rhythmic noise that reminded her of a horse walking over dry ground. Hope flickered inside her. She waited, listening as the sound grew closer. Her heart began to beat faster, not out of fear but from the possibility that someone might finally be near. She did not know who it could be. She had no idea whether the person would be friendly or even willing to help. But she knew she needed another human being. She needed someone who could lift her, speak to her, or simply stand near her so she would not feel so alone. The sound grew louder, then stopped. She could not see very far from her position, so she tried to call out, but her voice came out weak at first. She gathered what strength she had left and called again, louder this time. The wind carried her voice across the open land, and she waited, listening for any response. For a moment, there was only silence. Then she heard the sound of footsteps approaching, slow, careful, as if someone was trying to understand what they had just heard. Her heart beat faster. She fixed her eyes on the edge of her shelter, waiting to see who had arrived. A figure appeared, blocking the sunlight for a moment. It was a man wearing a wide hat and dusty boots. He looked surprised, even confused, as if he had not expected to find anyone here. He took a step closer, studying her with concern. His clothes suggested he was a traveler, perhaps a cowboy moving between ranches. Nayeli felt a mixture of relief and uncertainty. She did not know this man. She did not know what he wanted. But the calm look in his eyes gave her a feeling of safety. She drew a slow breath and waited for him to speak. The man introduced himself gently, explaining that he had been traveling alone and saw smoke rising from this direction days earlier. He had followed the trail out of curiosity and concern. When he heard her voice, he immediately came to see if someone needed help. Nayeli listened quietly, feeling her hope grow. She realized that after so many days alone, someone had finally come. Someone who might help her survive, maybe even help her walk or travel again. She looked at him with gratitude, wondering what this unexpected meeting might bring, and as the sun warmed the land around them, her long days of loneliness slowly began to change into the possibility of something new. Cole Harding stood beside Nayeli's small shelter, trying to understand what had happened to her. His horse grazed quietly a few steps behind him, as if sensing the importance of the moment. Cole removed his hat slowly and knelt so he would not look towering or threatening. He spoke gently, asking if she needed help. His voice was warm, steady, and full of genuine concern. Nayeli studied him carefully. She had spent days alone in the desert. Her mind had grown used to silence, so hearing another human voice felt strangely overwhelming. But there was something honest in Cole's expression, something that told her he was not there to cause trouble. She gathered a little breath and told him her name, explaining her situation in simple words. She told him about the accident, how her tribe had tried to care for her, and how they eventually had to leave her behind because they could not travel with someone who could not walk. Cole listened without interruption. His brows lowered with sympathy, and his eyes softened as he took in the difficult picture she described. When she finished, he looked at her with a kind expression that carried no judgment, only understanding. He told her he was a cowboy who moved from one ranch to another, working wherever someone needed help with horses or cattle. He said he had seen many hard situations in his life, but he had never seen someone survive alone for so many days with such quiet strength. "You must have a strong heart," he said softly. Nayeli did not answer right away. She was not used to strangers speaking gently to her. She felt grateful, but she also felt uncertain. She had no idea what he planned to do next. Cole stood up slowly and looked around her shelter. He noticed how low her water supply was. He saw how she had organized everything carefully to survive. He realized she had been stronger than most people would ever imagine. Then he said something that surprised her deeply. He told her he would not leave her alone in this place. He explained that he had enough supplies on his horse, and he knew a ranch nearby where she could rest and heal. Nayeli's breath caught. For days she had fought to remain alive. Now, suddenly, help had arrived. But she still hesitated. She had always been taught to rely on herself and her tribe. Accepting help from a stranger felt unfamiliar. She looked at Cole and asked quietly why he wanted to help her. Cole smiled, but not in a proud or showy way. It was a simple, human smile. He said he believed no one should be left alone when they needed another person. He said he had grown up learning that kindness was not something to be measured or doubted. If someone is in trouble, he said, you help them. That's the rule I live by. Nayeli closed her eyes for a moment. She felt the warmth of his words. After a long silence, she nodded. Cole immediately began preparing to move her. He brought his horse closer and arranged his blankets on the saddle to make it soft. He worked slowly and carefully, so she would not feel rushed or frightened. Nayeli watched him with quiet trust growing inside her. When he finally lifted her, he did it gently, with great care. He was stronger than he looked, but he moved slowly, so she would not feel discomfort. Nayeli held onto his shoulder, surprised by how steady he felt. Cole placed her on the horse as softly as possible, making sure she was safe and supported. He tied the supplies to the saddle and began leading the horse forward at a slow pace. The journey toward the ranch took several hours. During the ride, Cole walked beside the horse so Nayeli would not feel alone. He told her about his work, about the different ranches he had visited, and about the quiet life he lived. He did not talk too much, only enough to keep the silence from feeling heavy. Nayeli listened quietly. Sometimes she answered, sometimes she simply let his calm voice carry her thoughts away from the fear she had lived in for days. The land slowly changed around them. The dry sand began to give way to patches of grass. Small shrubs appeared along the path. A gentle breeze carried the scent of distant water. The sky above shifted to a warm orange as evening approached. The world felt different, softer, kinder now that she was not alone. When they finally reached the ranch, Nayeli felt a mix of disbelief and relief. The ranch house stood tall, with wooden walls that had weathered many seasons. A few cattle grazed nearby. Horses rested under a wide shelter. Smoke drifted from the chimney, carrying the smell of food. It felt like a different world from the quiet, lonely place she had been left in. Cole helped her down from the horse, lifting her with the same gentleness as before. He carried her inside the ranch house and laid her on a bed with soft blankets. The room felt warm and safe. Nayeli closed her eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the feeling of comfort she had not experienced since before her accident. Cole brought her food and water and made sure she was comfortable. He spoke kindly, telling her she could rest as long as she needed. He reassured her that he would help her recover and that she did not need to worry about being a burden. His voice carried a sincere warmth that eased the tension in her mind. Over the next few days, Cole cared for her with steady dedication. He cleaned the room, boiled water, and helped her sit up when she needed support. He made soft soups and placed them near her so she could eat whenever she had strength. He never asked anything from her. He never made her feel helpless. He simply helped her because he believed it was the right thing to do. Nayeli began to regain strength in her upper body. She learned to move more comfortably. She practiced sitting for longer periods and used her arms to adjust herself on the bed. Cole encouraged every small improvement, always patient and never pushing her too hard. She found herself watching him sometimes when he was not looking. She noticed how he moved with quiet confidence, how gently he handled the animals, how respectfully he treated her. There was no judgment in his eyes, no pity, only a steady sense of care. For the first time since her accident, she felt something like hope. One afternoon, Cole brought her a wooden frame he had made from smooth branches. He placed it beside her bed and explained that it would help her practice lifting herself and maintaining balance. It was simple but sturdy. Nayeli felt touched that he had taken the time to make something just for her. She tried using it that same day. It was difficult at first. Her body shook with effort. But Cole stood beside her the whole time, offering encouragement. Step by step, she learned to use her hands and arms to shift her weight more easily. Each movement reminded her that she still had strength, even if her life had changed. Cole never treated her as someone broken. He treated her as someone capable of becoming strong again. She could feel that belief in everything he did. Over the next weeks, Nayeli's spirit began to grow brighter. She looked forward to each new day, knowing Cole would help her learn something new. She remembered her past with less pain. She thought about her future with more courage. She stopped feeling like someone who had been left behind. Instead, she began to feel like someone who had been given a second chance. And though neither of them said it out loud, a quiet understanding formed between them. A bond built not on need, but on respect, kindness, and the shared belief that healing was possible. Nayeli woke each morning with a new sense of purpose. The ranch had slowly become a place where she felt safe, and every sunrise felt like a small promise that life could still move forward. Cole always started the day early, feeding the horses and checking the fences, but he never left without first stopping by her room to ask how she was feeling. His steady presence made the mornings warm, and his calm voice reminded her she was not facing her struggles alone. As the days turned into weeks, Nayeli began to grow stronger. She practiced lifting herself, using the wooden frame Cole built. At first, she could barely hold herself up for more than a few seconds, but Cole encouraged her gently, telling her that progress came slowly for everyone. Nayeli believed him. She trusted him, and every day, she tried a little harder. Her upper body grew stronger. Her arms adjusted to doing the work her legs once did. She learned how to shift from the bed to a small bench that Cole placed beside it. It took patience, balance, and bravery. But she managed. Cole always stood nearby, ready to catch her if she slipped, though he rarely needed to. Nayeli's determination held her steady. Sometimes she practiced for hours, stopping only when she grew tired. She wanted to be as independent as possible. Not because she felt pressure, but because she felt hope. She wanted to live fully again, even in a new way. Cole noticed her progress with quiet pride. He never clapped or cheered loudly, but his eyes shone with warmth whenever she accomplished something new. His kindness made each step forward feel more meaningful. One afternoon, Cole returned from town with a long wooden box balanced across his saddle. Nayeli watched from her window as he carried it inside, curious about what he had brought. When he entered her room, she saw a gentle excitement on his face that she had not seen before. He set the box on the floor and knelt beside it. He explained that he had spoken to a traveling doctor who visited the nearby town often. That doctor knew how to make simple artificial legs using wood and leather. With some effort, Cole had purchased a pair that could be adjusted to fit Nayeli's size. They were not perfect, and they were not comfortable at first. But they were a beginning. Nayeli felt a wave of emotion that she could hardly describe. She looked at the wooden legs inside the box, smooth, polished, carefully shaped, and realized how much effort Cole must have put into getting them. She did not know what to say, but Cole understood the look in her eyes. He smiled softly and told her that she did not need to stand on them immediately. She could take her time. He only wanted her to know she had the chance, if she ever chose to try. For several days, Nayeli simply studied the legs from a distance, gathering courage. She touched them, traced the smooth edges, and imagined what it might feel like to stand again, even if only for a short moment. Cole did not rush her. He knew she needed to decide for herself when she was ready. Finally, one morning, Nayeli asked him if they could try. Cole nodded gently and helped her sit upright. He adjusted the wooden legs carefully, tightening the straps around her thighs and making sure nothing pinched or rubbed too harshly. When everything was ready, he placed his hands under her arms and helped her rise. The first attempt lasted only a few seconds. Her body shook with effort, and she felt unfamiliar pressure beneath her. She had to sit back down quickly, her breath trembling. But Cole praised her gently, reminding her that standing for even a moment was a success. The second attempt lasted longer. The third lasted even longer. Every day she stood a little taller and balanced a little more confidently. It was not easy. It took strength, patience, and a calm heart. But Nayeli had all of those. Slowly, she learned how to take small steps while holding on to the wooden frame. Cole stayed beside her always, guiding her movements, steadying her when she wobbled, and encouraging her with quiet words that never failed to reassure her. She felt like a child learning to walk all over again. But instead of feeling embarrassed, she felt grateful. Every step reminded her that life was not finished with her yet. Outside the ranch house, the land continued its peaceful rhythm. Horses moved across the fields, swishing their tails softly. Cattle grazed under the warm sun. Birds flew in and out of the tall trees that bordered the ranch. The world seemed to welcome Nayeli's return to movement, as if nature itself believed she belonged here. As her strength increased, Cole began taking her outside in a wooden chair he had carefully built with wheels attached. He rolled her to the porch, letting her watch the horses run and feel the breeze on her face. She closed her eyes often, enjoying the warm air and the comforting sounds of the ranch. It felt like the world was slowly opening for her again. Sometimes Cole sat beside her on the porch steps. They talked about small things, the weather, the horses, memories from their pasts. Nayeli rarely spoke about the day her tribe left her. Cole never asked. He understood that some stories did not need to be shared in detail. Sometimes silence said enough. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft orange light, Nayeli told Cole something she had been holding in her heart. She said she did not blame her people for leaving her behind. She explained that her tribe had lived a life of constant travel, and sometimes difficult choices were made to protect the group. She said she still carried respect for them, even if her journey had taken a different path now. Cole listened quietly, nodding. He told her that understanding others, even when they made painful decisions, was a sign of great strength. Nayeli felt lighter after hearing those words, as if a quiet weight had lifted from her shoulders. With each passing day, Nayeli learned new ways to adapt. She used her hands to craft small items out of leather, guided by old memories from her childhood. Cole admired her work and encouraged her to make more. She spent afternoons decorating the items with simple patterns, each one telling a piece of her story in shapes and lines. Her confidence grew, her spirit grew, and her heart grew stronger with each small success. Near the end of the month, Nayeli surprised Cole by standing up without needing him to lift her. She steadied herself on the wooden frame and took 2 careful steps toward him. Cole's eyes widened slightly in quiet admiration. He didn't cheer loudly or make a fuss. He simply smiled a warm, proud smile that meant more to Nayeli than any celebration. She knew she still had a long way to go. She knew there would be days when her body felt tired and the work felt heavy. But she also knew she was not alone. And that made every step possible. Nayeli looked out across the ranch often during those days, watching the land stretch far into the horizon. She realized her path had changed in a way she never expected. Her old life had ended when her legs stopped working, but a new life had begun when Cole found her. She did not know where this new path would lead, but she had learned that hope could grow in the most unexpected places. And each day, as she practiced walking with the wooden legs, she felt that hope becoming stronger. The weeks that followed were filled with slow but steady progress for Ayanna. Each morning began with the same routine. Daniel would bring warm water to help her wash, then help her move into her chair so she could sit outside and feel the early sun. The soft warmth on her face always gave her energy. It reminded her that life still had beauty, no matter how much had changed. She no longer hid her sadness, but she no longer let it control her either. Every day she tried to do one thing better than the day before. Daniel encouraged her constantly. He never pushed her too hard, but he also never let her give up. When she struggled to lift herself from the chair to the bed, he didn't jump in too quickly. He simply stayed close, his voice calm, telling her that she could do it. Slowly, her confidence grew. She learned how to move differently, how to balance herself, how to trust her arms more than she ever had before. She realized she was becoming strong again, but in a completely new way. Her heart was still healing, though. Some nights she woke up thinking about her tribe, remembering voices she once knew, faces she once trusted. The memories were soft and painful at the same time. Daniel noticed the way she gazed out toward the distant hills, and he understood without asking. He gave her time to sit with her thoughts. He often sat nearby, quietly working on something with his hands, reminding her that she was not alone. One chilly evening, he handed her a small leather pouch. His expression was gentle but serious. "I made this for you," he said. Ayanna opened it and found a pair of lightweight tools, shaped to help her grip and pull herself onto a horse. They were simple, but carefully crafted, and she could see the effort he had put into them. She looked up at him with wide eyes. "For me?" He nodded. "You said you wanted to feel the wind again." "You will." At first she thought he meant a short ride in the corral. She imagined sitting in the saddle while he held the horse still. But Daniel had a different plan. Over the next days, he trained his calmest horse to respond to new commands. He taught Ayanna how to guide with her hands alone, how to shift her weight safely, and how to create a balance that suited her new body. He never let her feel ashamed of asking questions. He repeated every instruction with patience, sometimes even with humor, making her laugh so she wouldn't focus only on the difficulty. The first time she rode outside the corral, she felt something powerful come alive in her chest. The breeze brushed against her hair, carrying the scent of open land. The ground stretched in all directions, and she felt small but strong at the same time. Her laughter surprised both of them. It was the first sound of pure joy she had made in a very long time. Day by day, she practiced more. Soon she could guide the horse across uneven land. She learned to trust her balance again. Her confidence grew with every ride. Daniel watched her with pride, knowing that she was reclaiming a part of herself she thought was lost forever. One day, while riding along the quiet trail beside the river, she finally spoke the words she had been holding close. "I thought my life was over," she said softly. "I thought there was nothing left for me." Daniel rode beside her, letting her speak without interruption. "But now," she continued, "I feel like I can breathe again. I feel like the world still has a place for me." Daniel smiled at her. "It always did. You just needed time to see it." Her heart warmed at his words. Something inside her felt lighter. As the days kept passing, the small ranch began to feel like home. Ayanna found comfort in helping with simple tasks. She sorted tools, cleaned saddles, fed the chickens, and tended the small garden. She worked slowly but with determination, and Daniel often teased her that she ran the ranch better than he did. Her laughter returned more often. Her eyes looked brighter, but even with her growing happiness, there remained a quiet question in her heart. What would she do with her future? She had been a warrior once. Her life before had been shaped by purpose and duty. Now everything was unfamiliar. She needed to discover a new direction, a new identity. One afternoon, she found Daniel repairing a broken fence. She approached him carefully. "I need to ask you something," she said. He looked up immediately. "Anything. What do you think I should do now?" Daniel rested his tools and sat beside her. He chose his words carefully. "I think you should build a life that feels true to you," he said. "You don't have to become what you were before. You don't have to choose something new right away. You can grow into it." She listened quietly. "You are strong," he continued. "Not because of what you lost, or what you went through. You are strong because you keep moving forward. Whatever you choose to do, you'll bring that strength with you." His words settled in her heart like a gentle flame. She realized she didn't need to rush. Life was not a single path. It was a journey, and she could shape it gradually. Over the next few weeks, she began to dream again. She thought about teaching young people how to ride horses. She imagined helping others who had lost mobility find new ways to move and live. She imagined sharing her story one day, not as a tragedy, but as a message of hope. These thoughts motivated her. She practiced daily. She kept improving. Daniel watched her with admiration. He had seen her at her lowest, and now he saw her standing strong again, not with her legs, but with her heart. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky orange and gold, Ayanna felt a peaceful silence settle around them. Daniel sat beside her on the porch, quietly sipping his drink. She looked at him thoughtfully. "You saved my life," she said softly. He shook his head. "No. I helped where I could. But you saved yourself. You chose to live." Ayanna smiled, feeling a deep gratitude that words could hardly express. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he replied, his voice warm. As the sky darkened and the stars appeared, Ayanna felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope for tomorrow. She knew there would still be challenges. Some days would be hard, some memories would still hurt. But she also knew she was no longer standing alone. Life had taken something from her, but it had also given her someone who believed in her when she could not believe in herself. In the following months, her progress became even stronger. She learned how to craft small items using wood and leather. She sold them in the nearby town with Daniel's help. People began to admire her work, and soon, She found purpose in creating things that were both beautiful and useful. Her confidence continued to grow. Daniel encouraged her to meet more people, and she slowly became part of the small community. The townsfolk grew to respect her determination. Her story quietly spread of a woman who lost much, but never allowed the loss to define her. One day, a young boy with an injured leg came to the ranch with his parents. He had heard that Ayana was skilled with horses and asked if she could teach him. The boy's shy request surprised her, but she felt a tug in her heart. She accepted. The first lesson was slow and careful, but the boy's smile reminded her of her own journey. She realized she had stepped into a new role, someone who could guide and inspire. Daniel watched her from afar, pride shining in his eyes. He saw how she spoke gently to the boy, how she encouraged him, how she understood his fears. In her care for the boy, Daniel saw the full circle of her healing. She had become a beacon of hope without even trying. That night, as she looked out across the quiet land, Ayana finally understood something important. Her tribe may have walked away from her, but the world had not. Life had brought her into a place where she was needed, where she was valued, and where she could grow without fear. She was no longer the woman who had lost everything. She was someone reborn through kindness, courage, and patience. Her story was not about what she had lost. It was about what she had built. And as she sat under the stars, she whispered a silent promise to herself, to keep moving forward, to keep learning, to keep embracing the world with an open heart. She knew now that the journey ahead would be long, but it would also be full of possibilities. And this time, she was ready for all of them.